Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Abdul Alim. On behalf of IslamiCity, welcome to this live Jummah prayers. Today we have with us Dr. Aslam Abdullah, who will be leading us through this Jummah prayers, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Aslam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you please call the azan?
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Alhamdulillah. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفر ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد ومن يعصهما فلا يضر إلا لنفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. It's blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are part of this Friday congregation, even though we are not in Masajid, to remind ourselves the eternal message of Islam, Inna hudallahi huwa al-huda, that The guidance comes only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this was essentially the message that was delivered by all the messengers to humanity. And the Prophet ﷺ is the one who ensured that it is preserved in writing and in memory in his lifetime. And for that, he's described as Rahmatul lil Alameen. He told us that this life is fragile, this life can be taken away anytime, and a day will come when each one of us will be raised before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be held accountable for everything that we say and do, and we will be asked, "Iqra kitabak kafa bi nafsika al-yawma alayka hasiba." Read the book that you were writing in your lifetime, and it is now the time to read it, and your destination will be determined on that basis. He also assured us, "Inna lil muttaqina mafaza," that those people who are pious, those who are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who act responsibly in this world, indeed would be successful in this life and the life hereafter. The topic today is Muslim Americans and politics. And one must ask what relevance politics has with our faith. Why should we talk politics? Quran tells us, "Ya ayyuhallazina amanu udkhulu fis-silmi kaffa," that be part of this faith completely. In other words, every aspect of life is the domain of Islam. Islam gives us guidelines in every aspect of life, regardless of the fact whether we are living in a majority country or a minority country. By majority and minority, I mean the Muslim majority countries or the countries where Muslims are in minority, like United States or in India or anywhere else where Muslims are lesser in numbers than the majority religious community. So the Quran gives us a holistic perspective, and we cannot say this is not the domain of Islam or this is the domain of Islam. Politics deals with relationship with authority. An authority could be authoritarian and authoritative. If the politics is authoritarian, then it directly impacts our own understanding of monotheism and dignity of human being. If it is authoritative, then we have to understand what kind of sources give it the authoritative status. And it is in this particular context, we, wherever we live, have to ask the simple question, is the power that is controlling our lives in every day authoritarian or authoritative? And if it is authoritarian, what is our responsibility? And if it is authoritative, then we should find out what are the sources of that authoritative power and whether that authoritative power is genuine or not genuine. So from that perspective, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu udkhulu fis-silmi kaffa, and from the perspective of our own understanding of monotheism and authoritarian and authoritative trends in politics, it becomes imperative for us to become part of the political process wherever we are. And the Quran is filled with examples after examples of the political nature of society and political challenges that all the prophets faced in their time. Whether it was the politics of the Romans at the time of Jesus or the politics of the Pharaoh at the time of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, or the politics of Egyptian king at the time of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, or the power elites of Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam, you would see all are referring to the power structure and their relationship with people and how authoritarian they were. And it is that authoritarianism that these messengers and these prophets challenged in the context of monotheism, in the context of believing in one God. So it becomes essential. The Quran refers to that. And then not only that, but the Quran also refers to the current situations at the time of the Prophet also. For instance, when the Quran told us in Surah Al-Rum, which is the 30th chapter of the Quran, غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ وَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ سَيَغْلِبُونَ, that Rome has been overpowered, and after some time they would overpower their victors. Quran is referring to an international political event. Quran is referring to the changes in global politics of that time. Quran is talking about how one should understand and deal with that. Quran, in other words, is telling people to keep an eye on what is happening, not only in their own immediate environment as far as politics is concerned, but also internationally they should be aware of that. Now, for strange reasons, Muslims developed a very confused understanding of their relationship with politics. One group says that the Muslims living in the countries that are not in control of Muslim rulers should not participate in politics because they should be enhancing or supporting the Taghut or the Batil or the wrongdoers. This is one. And hence, they have been saying that they should not. The second one is that democracy is bad. Democracy replaces Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in legislation, and hence democracy should not be supported in any way. We still have those. The third is that politics is only possible only when there is a caliphate. And we can involve in politics only when there is a khalifa. And as we see that in this country, there are several groups that are promoting that idea among Muslims as well. And then there is a fourth group that say that what do we have to do with politics? Let us focus on zikr, let us focus on the ibadat, let us focus on developing our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these 4 points of view basically prevail within our own community. And those who have been making that kind of call that they should get involved in politics often are accused of being modern or liberal. This kind of call that the Muslims should be involved in political affairs does not come from the pulpit and from the religious sectors, as if it has nothing to do with the religion, while the fact is that the religion is asking to us, that you should, when join Islam, join it fully in all aspects of life. So it is imperative that we get involved. And the Quran constantly reminds the believers, twice it mentions, and then there are several hadiths, that they should always be in a state of consultation on matters not related to whether they should be monotheistic, but in every affairs of life. So the Quran is very specific about all those things. Within this context, if we ask the question to ourselves, what responsibilities we as a faith-based community has towards the political process and electoral process in this particular country, then there are certain things that we have to basically understand. The first is, how does this political system work? Without that, we would not be able to participate. And the question that we ask, Do we really talk about this political process in our centers, in our masajid, in our institutions? Or we always talk about the akhirah, or we always talk about the length of our prayers and the khushu of our prayers? Yes, they are important. But when we live in a context, in a country that has a political process and a political system that impacts everything, then we have to basically get involved and ask those questions. So the first thing is to understand how does the political process and politics works in this country. And one thing is absolutely clear in the politics in this country, which is distinct from the rest of the world, is that every politics is local. It is from the local communities that you emerged on a regional, on a national, or an international scene. It is from those local areas that you show your involvement in politics and your respect and your concern for the people. How does our city work? How does our precinct work? How does our neighborhood work? What are the relationships? Who are the people who are the ones who control power? What are the decision making process? All those things. So everything is local. And when we look at this particular phenomena, we find that the Muslims are not actively involved in local politics. Even if they want to impact the decisions of this country on international issues or national issues, they have to be local. Without getting involved in local, they would not be. And that is exactly what we find the practice of the Prophet ﷺ was. That while he was giving a global perspective and universal understanding of Islam, he was working in tribes, with the local communities, whether they were in Mecca or they were in Medina or the surrounding areas. He would go from tribe to tribe, from localities to localities, involving people in the decision making process. The Constitution of Medina is a great example. What the way they dealt with the power elite in Mecca is an example that how he went to local communities and local individuals and persuaded them to help him free the slaves or to save those girls who were being buried or to bring about moral changes in the society. It was all local. So that is one thing that we have to focus on, how to get involved in the local communities. The first is an understanding of the political process, and the second is getting involved in the local process. The third thing is what the Quran says very specifically and very clearly. وَإِمَّا مَا يَنْفَعُ النَّاسَ فَيَمْكُثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. If you are not relevant to the people, and if people are not benefiting from your services and your presence, then you would not stay. You would be discarded. You would become irrelevant. So when there are forums at local levels or regional levels where people participate in decision-making process, in developing relationship with the authority and with the power, and if we are not present there, we would not be able to make our point of view known to others. It would not serve any good if we just stand on the pulpit and keep on saying that Islam is the best religion, Islam cares for humanity, Islam is a universal relationship, Islam is a peaceful relation. No one is listening to what we are saying there, except those intelligence agencies. And they are not interested in promoting what we are saying. So we have to be part of those decision-making process, and we have to make sure that whatever we are saying is not only for our good, but for the good of all. Because if we keep on raising about our own concern, then we are in fact denying the universalism of Islam, and we are saying that it is not important for us. So, this is something that we have to understand, that we have to not only understand the political system and political process, that we not only have to get involved in at the local level, that not only we have to be part of those decision making process, but also we have to do things that are universal and you that are uh, useful for others also. Because if we are not, then certainly our credibility as a universal faith and as a universal community, as a community that believes in justice and peace, is lost. The fifth thing in this one is that Quran places emphasis on justice when it says "Kunu qawwamina bil qist," that you have to stand for justice. You have to stand the truth. And as a faith based community, if we are involving in the politics as a faith based individual, as a faith based community, then we have certain responsibilities. And that primary responsibility in that is to ensure that we take the side of justice, even if it goes against our own interests. That we are not afraid in speaking up for justice. In this country, a lot of things happen that are on the border of injustice. Things are not as clear as people would want us to believe. That we believe in absolute justice and then we follow justice in all aspects of life, in the politics, in the legislative, in the executive, in everything. And so we have to stand for that justice. But in order to stand for justice, again, we have to go back to the first point that I mentioned, that we have to understand the reality. We have to understand the laws and see whether they are just or unjust. We have to study the education system. We have to study the environment policies. We have to study the defense policies. We have to study how the police works, all those things, so that we can take a stand. For instance, a report was released only 2 days ago. It is a report that is based on a study that many researchers did of the attitude of school principals all over the country with regard to Islam and with regard to blacks. They found that an overwhelming majority of the principals in our educational system, in our schools, has biases against Islam and Muslim. Now you can imagine the havoc this kind of understanding plays out every day in our schools. When the bullying is done, when the Muslim students are attacked. This has to do with politics. It has nothing to do with only the education system. Or recently, the EPIC program, that is a universal program online platform for students and for families to approach more than 40,000 books. There is a book on one of the persons who is accused of engineering genocide against Muslims in Gujarat in 2002. Now, and in that book, this man is presented as the champion of peace, as someone who is progressive, with all information regarding his role in the genocide is missing. How would we know unless we understand that process? How would we know unless we are involved in that process? So that also becomes our responsibility, that we stand for justice, not only for ourselves, but for others also. Why is it that the greatest Holocaust of people in the history of humanity, that is the blacks, who suffered perpetual exploitation and perpetual murder for almost 300 years in this country, have not been part of the curriculum the same way as the Holocaust of Jews in Germany has? It's injustice. So, كونوا قوامين بالقسط. We have to stand for justice. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. So once again, repeating what has already been explained is that involvement in politics is part of the faith. The Quran is filled with examples of references to the political structures during the time of the prophets. And the Quran is constantly asking people to get involved. Number two, we have to understand the political processes of the countries in which we live. And it is not only the responsibility of the political scientists and political activists, it is also the responsibility of the pulpits and the religious leadership to make their people aware of their responsibility in the political affairs. Number three, all politics in this country is local. And without involvement in local issues and local politics, things will not become better for the community. Number four, in the decisions making processes, Muslims have to project and present themselves in the light and in the framework of the Quranic message, that they have to be relevant to the people, not just to themselves. And then number five is that they have to speak up justice and for justice, and they have to challenge those issues and those laws and those practices that basically violate the principles of justice. Number six, in order to understand what justice is, they have to understand the policies of the people and the power elites in all factors of life, whether it is education, whether it is environment, whether it is defense, whether it is crime, law and order, or it is legislations. Only when we become involved, only when we start doing things, it doesn't matter that, you spend all your life doing all those things. What you need is as a part of the natural process, you get involved wherever you are. Even if you happen to be a mother staying at home, you can involve with Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. There is a program that is offered by political groups that teaches you how to get involved in political life and how to run for offices. This is specifically for women. Why can't they make use of this one? There are so many young boys and girls, especially young girls, who can get involved in all these things. So there are practical means that we can step. And that is what our responsibility is. It is part of religious responsibility and faith. It is part because politics could be either authoritarian and authoritative. And if authoritative is based on wrong authoritative sources, then the results will always be wrong. And that's what we are saying in this country and elsewhere also. So we need to get involved in this country. We have made mistakes in many other places by saying things that are not authenticated by the Quranic things, rather that were basically said on the basis of our emotions and on the basis of our own subjective feeling, not on the objective understanding. So that is why politics is involved. It is important that the Muslim Americans offer a new model of Islamic approach to the political processes of the countries in which they are living. There is no such thing called Darul Islam or Darul Harb or Darul Amn. Every place in the world belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And every place in the world has people and has creation that is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Justice cannot be confined in one area and locality. The idea of truth is universal. The idea of the authoritarian and authoritative is all over, and it is in this particular context it becomes important that from the pulpit we focus on American Muslims and politics as well. And let's pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us a better understanding of our faith, and that He asks us to and inspires us to do good wherever we are, whether we are in the field of education, or in the field of politics, or in the field of social work. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون ولذكر الله تعالى أعلى وأولى وأهم وأتم وأكبر. أقم الصلاة. I will be offering the Jummah prayers, that is 2 rakah, and after that I will say salam. Those who are joining me in Jummah prayers will say salam after me. Those who are pursuing the Zuhr prayers will continue and finish additional 2 rakahs. And those who want to have the Jummah and the Zuhr also, so they can make the nafil, the intention of doing nafil in Jummah, and then they can pray Zuhr afterwards as well. So inshallah, please call the Aqama.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
La ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم الصراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Please continue if you are praying Zuhr.
Thank you, Dr. Aslam, for leading us in this Jummah and this important reminder about how to get involved in our community and activities uh, in politics and organizing and different things. This is how we can make sure that our principles and values that we aspire to for justice and peace can be implemented in our own communities and through our voices on a national level and international level also, inshallah. So I'd just like to wish everyone a very healthy and peaceful and safe Memorial Day weekend that's coming up. It is going to be extremely hot, they're predicting, in Southern California. So please be safe. And we know that the virus is still out there. So be careful, although different parts of the city and state are opening up. But please take as much precaution as you can to be safe in our communities and, and to keep our families safe, inshallah. Just as a reminder, I'll leave you with just one thought. Uh, the lunar calendar, Islamic lunar calendar, takes about 33 years for it to cycle through a solar calendar. So in September 622 AD, in the Gregorian calendar, it was in September that the Prophet initiated the Hijrah. I know we are celebrating the first of Muharram, which is the beginning of the beginning of the Hijrah year also, but this also coincides in the solar calendar that September is when the Prophet started the migration. It says that he started that around the 9th, and he reached Medina around the 22nd, 20th or 24th, between those days, basically. So with that, happy Hijrah year to everyone, and safe and healthy holiday season. Assalamu alaikum.
السلام عليكم.